Subscribe to Storylab. Now let's begin. Malcolm Preston's hands were steady as he field-stripped his rifle for the 14th time that week. 20 years in Marine Force recon had made the motion mechanical, muscle memory that required no conscious thought. The Afghan desert stretched endlessly beyond the compound walls, and the silence of the night watch gave him too much time to think about the life he'd left behind. His son Lucas was 12 now, almost a teenager. Malcolm had missed 3 birthdays in the past 5 years, countless school events, and the slow transformation from boy to young man. Video calls helped, but pixels on a screen couldn't replace a father's presence. Still, the kid understood. Or at least, Malcolm hoped he did. What Malcolm didn't fully understand was his wife. Vicky Preston, née Cantrell, had grown distant over the last 2 deployments. Their conversations felt scripted, her smiles forced during their weekly calls. She mentioned her brothers visiting more often, Morris, Walter, and Edgar Cantrell. 3 men Malcolm had never particularly liked, even before he'd married into their family. Morris, the eldest at 42, had done 2 stints in county jail for assault. Walter, 38, had a gambling problem that had cost him 2 marriages. Edgar, the youngest at 35, just followed his brothers like a loyal dog, mean for the sake of being mean. Malcolm had met Vicky 15 years ago in San Diego at a bar near Camp Pendleton. She'd been different then, sharp-witted, independent, working as a nurse. But her family had always been a shadow over their marriage. Her mother, Trudy Cantrell, was a manipulative woman who saw Malcolm as an obstacle, someone who'd taken her daughter away. The brothers had made it clear they thought Vicky had married beneath her, despite Malcolm's rank and service record. He tried to build bridges over the years. Failed. Eventually, he'd settled for polite distance, seeing them only at major holidays. But lately, Vicky had been pushing for them to spend more time at her mother's house, letting her brothers help out while Malcolm was deployed. Something about it didn't sit right, but he'd been thousands of miles away, unable to do anything but trust his wife's judgment. That trust shattered on a Tuesday night. Malcolm was 3 weeks into a 6-week deployment, running reconnaissance missions in the mountains near the Pakistani border. His team had just returned from a 72-hour operation when his phone buzzed. Lucas's name on the screen. He stepped away from the debriefing, into the relative privacy of the armory. "Hey, buddy. Everything okay?" The sound that came through the line made Malcolm's blood freeze. His son was sobbing, gasping for air between words. Dad, please. Mom's brothers are here." Malcolm's grip tightened on the phone. "What? Lucas, what's happening?" "They're hurting me, Dad." His son's voice cracked. "Mom's just watching. She won't stop them. Dad, please come home. It hurts so bad." The line went dead. Malcolm stared at the phone, his training warring with a father's primal terror. He tried calling back. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Lucas's phone. Voicemail. The house line. No answer. "Preston, you good?" His lieutenant appeared in the doorway. Malcolm's mind was already moving through options, calculating distances, factoring in transport times. Commercial flights from Bagram to San Diego, 36 hours minimum with connections. Military transport, maybe 24 if he could get priority, but unlikely. He couldn't just leave his post without authorization, and getting that would take time he didn't have. His son was being hurt right now, this moment, and Malcolm was 7,000 miles away. Then he remembered. Harold Zamora. Harold had been Malcolm's staff sergeant during his early years in recon. A legendary operator who'd served 26 years before retiring to Oceanside, California, 10 minutes from Malcolm's house. They'd stayed in touch, occasional beers when Malcolm was stateside, Christmas cards. Harold had met Lucas several times, had always treated the boy with the gruff kindness of a career soldier who understood the sacrifices of military families. Malcolm dialed with shaking hands. "Preston? That you?" "Bit late for a social call, brother." Harold's voice was gravelly, alert despite the hour. "Harold, I need you to do something for me. Right now." Malcolm's voice was controlled, clipped, pure mission mode. "My son just called. He's being hurt. His mother's brothers, 3 of them, are at my house. Vicky's letting it happen. I can't get home for at least 36 hours. Silence on the other end. Then address. Malcolm rattled it off. Harold, Lucas is 12. Whatever's happening. I'm moving in 10 minutes. I'll bring friends. The line clicked off. Malcolm stood in the armory, still holding the phone, feeling utterly helpless despite 20 years of training for impossible situations. He'd extracted high-value targets from enemy territory, survived firefights against overwhelming odds, made split-second decisions that saved lives. None of it mattered now. He spent the next 30 minutes making calls. His commanding officer was sympathetic but bureaucratically hamstrung. Emergency leave would take at least 12 hours to process. Malcolm made it happen anyway, calling in favors, leveraging every connection. He got clearance for military transport, leaving in 6 hours. Still not fast enough, but the best he could do. Then he waited. Tried Lucas's phone every 5 minutes. Voicemail. The house line. Nothing. Vicky's phone. Decline calls. At hour 2, his phone rang. Harold, we're at your house. Door was locked. We went in anyway. Lucas. Safe. Scared, bruised, but safe. He's with McLean right now, getting checked out. Kid's tough, Malcolm. Told us everything while we waited for the cops. The brothers. All 3 went to the hospital. Ambulances just left. Harold's voice carried no regret. They put their hands on your boy, Malcolm. We made sure they understood that was a mistake. Vicky. Cops took her. She tried to say we broke in, assaulted her brothers unprovoked. Then Lucas told the officers what happened. Your wife's in custody, facing charges. Malcolm leaned against the wall, his eyes closed. Relief and rage fought for dominance. What did they do to him, Harold? According to Lucas, they've been coming around for the past 2 months while you've been gone. Started with verbal abuse, escalated to pushing, slapping. Tonight, Morris held him down while Walter... Harold paused. They beat him, Malcolm. Ribs, arms, face. Vicky watched. Told Lucas he needed to toughen up and stop being weak like his father. The rage won. I'm on a transport in 4 hours. Landing in 24. We'll be here. All of us. And Malcolm? Your boy asked for you. Kept asking when you'd be home. He knew you'd come. Knew you'd fix this. Malcolm ended the call and began the longest 24 hours of his life. The flight from Bugram to Germany felt interminable. Malcolm sat in the cargo hold of a C-17, surrounded by equipment and a handful of other personnel, his mind replaying Lucas's call on an endless loop. He'd failed his son, been absent when it mattered most. What kind of father chose deployment over being there to protect his child? Except he hadn't chosen anything. He'd served, done his duty, trusted that home was safe. Trusted Vicky. That trust was obliterated. During the connection in Ramstein, Malcolm used a secured line to call his attorney, Dave Montoya, a civilian lawyer who specialized in military family law. Dave had handled Malcolm's will, Lucas's custody paperwork when Malcolm deployed. Now, he was going to handle something far more important. Dave, I need you to file for full custody of Lucas immediately. Emergency filing. My wife facilitated assault on our son by her brothers. Malcolm, slow down. What happened? Malcolm gave him the clinical version, kept emotion out of it. Facts only. Date, time, witnesses, police report number that Harold had texted him. Dave listened, asked pointed questions, and promised to have paperwork filed within hours. The brothers, what's their status? Hospitalized. My guys made sure they couldn't hurt anyone else for a while. That could complicate things legally. Self-defense. They were protecting a child from active assault. Malcolm's tone brooked no argument. Harold and his team are heroes. Make sure that's the narrative. I will. But Malcolm, we need to talk about Vicky. If she's claiming she didn't participate, Lucas says otherwise. She watched. Told him he deserved it. That's participation. The second leg from Germany to Andrews Air Force Base was shorter, but felt longer. Malcolm couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. He ran through scenarios, imagined confrontations, planned logistics. He needed to see Lucas, make sure his son was truly okay. Then he needed to understand what had broken in his marriage so catastrophically that Vicky would encourage her brothers to hurt their child. By the time Malcolm landed at San Diego International, he'd been awake for 42 hours straight. Harold was waiting at arrivals, standing near a black SUV, looking exactly like what he was, a retired operator who could still move mountains if needed. They didn't exchange pleasantries. Harold drove, while Malcolm listened to the full account. Kenneth McLean was with me when you called. Former EOD tech, you remember him. We grabbed Clark Ryan and Ernest Long on the way to your place. Fred McCormick met us there. He was closer. 5 total. What did you find? Back door was unlocked. We entered, identified ourselves as friends of yours. Morris Cantrell was in the living room with Lucas on the floor. Walter was kicking him. Edgar was watching the door. Vicky was on the couch, drinking wine. Malcolm's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Lucas saw us first, yelled for help. Morris made a move toward the kid. Looked like he was going to use him as leverage. We didn't give him the chance. Harold's scarred hands were steady on the wheel. Kenneth secured Lucas, got him out of the room. The rest of us dealt with the brothers. Define dealt with. Morris has a broken jaw, shattered orbital bone, 3 cracked ribs. Walter has 2 broken arms, concussion. Edgar has a ruptured spleen and a fractured pelvis. Harold glanced at Malcolm. We used appropriate force to neutralize the threat and protect a minor. That's what the police report says. That's what our statements say. It's also the truth. Where's Lucas now? Safe house. Well, my house. With McLean and his wife. I didn't think your place was appropriate, and we didn't want him in the system until you got back. Thank you, Harold. I mean it. You saved my son. You'd have done the same for any of ours. That's what brotherhood means. They drove to Harold's ranch-style home in Oceanside. Lucas was in the backyard, sitting at a picnic table with Kenneth McLean, both working on what looked like a model airplane. When Lucas saw Malcolm, he dropped the model and ran. Malcolm caught his son, held him carefully to avoid the bruises he could see darkening his face and arms. Lucas was crying, but different than the phone call. Relief, not terror. I knew you'd come, Dad. I knew it. Always, buddy. I'm here now. I've got you. Malcolm examined his son's injuries with a practiced eye. Split lip, swollen left eye, bruises along his jaw and neck. Defensive wounds on his forearms. The kind of injuries that came from trying to protect yourself from someone bigger and stronger. Kenneth approached, gave Malcolm a firm handshake. Kid's a fighter. Didn't make it easy for them. Lucas, can you tell me what happened? Everything from the beginning. They sat at the picnic table. Lucas, voice steady despite occasional trembles, told the story. 2 months ago, after Malcolm's current deployment began, Vicky had invited her brothers over for dinner. They'd been rude to Lucas, made comments about him being soft, raised by a father who was never around. Lucas had ignored it, went to his room, but they kept coming back. Weekly at first, then more frequently. The comments became pushes. Pushes became slaps. Slaps became punches. Vicky witnessed all of it, sometimes encouraged it, told Lucas he needed discipline, that Malcolm had made him weak and entitled. Her brothers were helping fix him. Lucas had tried telling his mother it needed to stop. She laughed, said he was being dramatic. He'd considered calling Malcolm earlier, but knew his father was on dangerous missions. Didn't want to distract him, maybe get him killed because he was worried about home. Tonight had been different. Morris had said they were going to teach him a real lesson. They planned it, Lucas realized. Waited until late when neighbors wouldn't hear. Walter had started hitting him in the ribs, the stomach, places that wouldn't show as easily. Morris held him down. Edgar blocked the door, so he couldn't run. That's when Lucas had grabbed his phone from his pocket, managed to dial Malcolm's number before Morris knocked it away. Then Harold and his team had crashed through the door like avenging angels. Malcolm listened with forced calm, every word stoking a cold fury that settled deep in his chest. His wife, the woman he'd married, built a life with, trusted to protect their son, had orchestrated abuse. Not just allowed it, orchestrated it. Why? Malcolm asked. Did she say why? Lucas hesitated, then spoke quietly. She said you were never here, that she deserved better, that I reminded her too much of you, that Uncle Morris said they could help her get rid of those reminders. Get rid of? I think they wanted you to come home to something bad, Dad. Something that would make you leave and not come back. Then Mom could. Lucas trailed off, but Malcolm understood. This wasn't just abuse. This was calculated. Vicky wanted Malcolm gone, separated, divorced, whatever it took, and she was using Lucas as leverage. The brothers were part of a plan. Harold caught Malcolm's eye, read the understanding there. Your lawyer called while you were in the air. Emergency custody hearing is tomorrow morning. Vicky's attorney is trying to claim Lucas misunderstood the situation, that her brothers were disciplining him with her permission because you're absent. That won't work. No, because Lucas will testify, and the medical examiner already documented his injuries. And we have witness statements from 5 decorated combat veterans. Malcolm looked at his son. I need you to be strong a little longer, buddy. Tomorrow, you're going to have to tell a judge what happened. Can you do that? Lucas nodded, jaw set in determination that reminded Malcolm painfully of himself. I want them punished, Dad. All of them. Especially Mom. She was supposed to protect me. She was. And she didn't. That's on her, not you. Malcolm pulled Lucas close again. But I promise you this. They will all pay for what they did. Every single one of them. That night, Malcolm slept in Harold's guest room with Lucas in the twin bed next to his, like when the boy was small and afraid of thunderstorms. Malcolm didn't sleep much. Instead, he planned. The custody hearing was brutal but swift. Lucas testified with a composure that broke Malcolm's heart. The judge, a stern woman named Patricia Horn, listened to the medical evidence, the police reports, the testimony from Harold's team. Vicky's attorney tried to argue that the brothers were merely providing discipline in Malcolm's absence, that military families often had different standards. Lucas's bruises, photographed in stark clinical detail, demolished that argument. Judge Horn granted Malcolm full emergency custody, restricted Vicky to supervised visitation pending criminal trial, and issued restraining orders against all 3 Cantrell brothers. Vicky sat in the defendant's box, stone-faced, refusing to meet Malcolm's eyes or Lucas's. After the hearing, Malcolm met with Dave Montoya outside the courthouse. The DA is filing charges against all 4, Dave explained. Vicky's looking at child endangerment, conspiracy to commit assault, contributing to the delinquency of a minor. The brothers are facing felony assault of a minor, conspiracy, criminal trespass. Morris has 2 prior convictions, so he's looking at enhanced sentencing. What are we talking time-wise? Vicky might get probation if she cooperates, maybe a year. Brothers, Morris could get 5 to 7, Walter and Edgar 3 to 5. Not enough. Not nearly enough. What about the civil side? You can sue for damages, emotional distress, medical costs. Might get a settlement, but they don't have much money. Vicky's family isn't wealthy. Malcolm considered this. Money wasn't the point. Justice was. But the legal system's version of justice felt inadequate for what had been done to his son. That evening, back at Harold's house, the full team gathered. Harold, Kenneth, Clark, Ernest, and Fred. They sat on the back porch while Lucas was inside with Kenneth's wife, Marina, who'd brought over dinner and movies to keep the boy occupied. You have a look, Harold observed, handing Malcolm a beer. I know that look. We all do. Clark Ryan, youngest of the group at 32, lean and sharp-featured, leaned forward. Whatever you're thinking, we're in. You don't know what I'm thinking. Don't need to. Ernest Long rumbled. He was built like a tank, 6'4" and 260, with hands that looked like they could bend steel. We know you. 20 years in recon. Your kid got hurt on our watch. Well, close enough. We want to help finish this right. Fred McCormick, the quietest of the group, spoke up. Legal system will do what it does. But that doesn't mean justice gets served. We all know how this goes. Vicky plays the battered wife, manipulated by her family. Brothers claim they thought they were helping. Everyone gets light sentences or probation out in 2 years. Meanwhile, your son carries those scars forever. That's not acceptable, Malcolm said flatly. No, Harold agreed. It's not. So what's the play? Malcolm had been thinking about this since landing. The brothers would go to prison, but not long enough. Vicky might walk with probation, and none of them would truly understand the damage they'd caused, the betrayal, the violation of trust that went beyond legal definitions. I need information first. Everything about Vicky's family. Financial records, criminal histories beyond what's public, associates, properties, debts. Anything exploitable. Kenneth, who'd worked in intelligence after his EOD days, nodded. I can handle that. Give me 48 hours. Next, I want to know why. This wasn't random. Vicky didn't just snap. There's a reason, probably financial, maybe custody related. She wanted me gone, wanted Lucas under her control. Why? Life insurance? Clark suggested. You're still active duty, high-risk deployment. Big payout if you don't come back. Malcolm had updated his policy 3 years ago. Lucas was the sole beneficiary, with Vicky as trustee until the boy turned 21. If something happened to Lucas while Malcolm was alive, Vicky would have nothing. But if Malcolm died, Vicky controlled a $750,000 payout. Check the policy, Malcolm told Kenneth. See if anything changed recently. On it. Over the next 2 days, Kenneth worked his contacts while Malcolm spent time with Lucas, helping his son begin processing the trauma. They talked, played video games, went to the beach, normal father-son activities that felt sacred after nearly losing the chance to have them. Kenneth returned with a file that made everything clear. Vicky had attempted to change the beneficiary designation on Malcolm's life insurance 4 months ago, when Malcolm was between deployments. The change request was to make herself the sole beneficiary, removing Lucas entirely. It had been rejected. Military policy required Malcolm's personal signature and presence for such changes. She tried twice more, both times rejected. 3 months ago, Vicky had taken out a $500,000 life insurance policy on Lucas, naming herself as beneficiary. A 12-year-old child, with a payout clause that covered accidental death. Kenneth laid out the timeline. The brothers started coming around right after the second rejection on your policy. My theory, Plan A was to get you killed on deployment while she controlled the payout through Lucas. When that didn't work, Plan B involved making Lucas's death look accidental, collecting directly. Malcolm felt ice in his veins. She was going to kill him, or have her brothers do it. Make it look like rough play that went too far. Tragic accident. Grieving mother collects the insurance. Maybe sues the brothers civilly to avoid suspicion. Settles out of court for pennies. Clean and simple. Except Lucas called me. Except that. Ruined the whole play. Harold shook his head grimly. Your wife tried to murder your son for $500,000. With help from her brothers. That's premeditated conspiracy to commit murder. Can we prove it? Malcolm asked. The insurance policy helps, but it's circumstantial. We need more. Communications between Vicky and her brothers, financial records showing money troubles, maybe recordings. Clark spoke up. I could get into their phones, emails. Not legal for court, but legal for us knowing the truth. Malcolm should have stopped him, should have relied on the legal system, trusted that the DA would uncover the conspiracy. But his son had almost died. His wife had plotted murder. The law was too slow, too forgiving, too full of loopholes. Do it, Malcolm said. What Clark found in the next 24 hours was damning. Text messages between Vicky and Morris going back 6 months. The early ones were vague, discussions about handling the Malcolm problem and securing the future. As time went on, they became explicit. Vicky texted Morris 3 weeks before Malcolm's deployment. I can't do another year of this. He's never here. And when he is, he's just a reminder of what I gave up. The money from Lucas would let me start over. Morris replied, we'll take care of it. Make it look right. You just need to keep quiet and grieve properly after. More messages, plans, timelines, discussion of how much force to use, how to stage it. Walter suggested making it look like Lucas fell down the stairs. Edgar preferred accident during roughhousing. They'd been planning to kill him. Their own nephew. For money. Malcolm read the messages 3 times, memorizing every word. Then he looked at his team. This changes things. Changes how? Ernest asked. They were going to murder my son. Vicky was going to murder her own child. The legal system will handle the assault charges, maybe even upgrade to attempted murder if the DA is competent. But even if they're convicted, Vicky might get 10 years, serve 5. Brothers get 7 to 10, serve half. Then they're out, free to hurt someone else's family. What's the alternative? Fred asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. Malcolm had spent 20 years in recon, operating in moral gray zones where mission success sometimes meant making hard choices. He'd never crossed certain lines, never killed except in combat, never abused authority for personal gain. But this was different. This was about protecting his son from people who would try again the moment they had opportunity. "I'm going to destroy them," Malcolm said simply. "All of them. Not just punishment, complete destruction. Financial, social, physical. I want them to lose everything, face consequences that last lifetimes. And I need it to be legal enough that I don't end up in prison away from Lucas." Harold grinned, the expression wolfish. "Now you're speaking our language. What's the plan?" They spent 3 days planning. Kenneth's intelligence background proved invaluable as they mapped out every aspect of the Cantrell family's lives. Morris had debts to some unsavory people, loan sharks who charged predatory interest. Walter's gambling problem had put him in deep with a local casino that had ties to organized crime. Edgar had no assets, no savings, nothing but dependency on his brothers. Trudy Cantrell, the mother-in-law, owned a modest house with significant equity. She also had a history of insurance fraud. 2 suspicious house fires in the past 20 years, both resulting in payouts, both never prosecuted due to insufficient evidence. The plan took shape. Complex, multi-layered, designed to hit every pressure point simultaneously. Phase 1. Legal pressure. Dave Montoya would pursue maximum criminal charges, file civil suits for damages, and ensure the attempted murder conspiracy evidence reached the DA through anonymous tips that couldn't be traced to Clark's illegal hacking. Phase 2. Financial destruction. Malcolm would contact Morris's loan sharks, pay off the debt himself, then buy the loan. As the new creditor, he could dictate terms, including seizing Morris's truck, tools, and anything else of value when Morris inevitably defaulted. Walter's casino debt would be handled similarly. Kenneth had contacts in that world. Phase 3. Social annihilation. Ernest would leak the text messages and insurance policy information to local media. Not the whole cache, just enough to make the story explosive. Local woman plots son's murder for insurance money was headline gold. Their faces would be everywhere, unemployable, unwelcome. Phase 4. The mother-in-law. Trudy had been conspicuously absent from the hospital when her sons were admitted. Harold said she showed up later, screaming about Malcolm's thugs attacking her boys unprovoked. She deserved her own reckoning. For Trudy, Malcolm planned something elegant. Kenneth discovered she'd recently applied for another insurance policy on her house, significantly overvalued. Classic fraud setup. A quiet word to the insurance investigator, along with her history, would trigger a formal investigation. If they found evidence of the previous frauds, and Kenneth would make sure they did, she'd face criminal charges and civil penalties that would bankrupt her. Phase 5. The final piece. Vicky. Vicky was the hardest to plan for, because Malcolm still felt echoes of what he'd once felt for her. Love, maybe, or at least affection. But she tried to have their son killed. That obliterated any remaining sentiment. Dave Montoya suggested an approach. In California, family law courts could order dissolution of marriage with extreme prejudice when one party attempted to harm children. Malcolm could divorce Vicky, receive full custody, and potentially claim all marital assets, including the house, savings, her nursing pension. But Malcolm wanted more than financial penalty. He wanted Vicky to understand the weight of her choices, to carry them forever. Kenneth found the leverage: Vicky's nursing license. If convicted of child endangerment or conspiracy to attempted murder, she'd lose her license permanently. No hospital or clinic would hire her. Her career, the one thing she'd maintained independently of Malcolm, would evaporate. Malcolm would make sure the nursing board received complete documentation. Even if criminal charges somehow got reduced, the professional consequences would follow her forever. It's a lot, Clark observed when they'd outlined everything. Coordinated attacks on multiple fronts, all within the next few weeks before trials start. You sure about this? They tried to kill my son, Malcolm repeated. This isn't revenge, it's justice. The kind that actually sticks. Then let's do it right. They executed Phase 1 immediately. Dave filed updated charges with the DA's office, including conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and child endangerment with intent. He also filed civil suits against all 4 defendants, Vicky and her 3 brothers, seeking damages of $2 million for emotional distress, medical costs, and pain and suffering. The anonymous tip about the text messages reached the DA's office through Kenneth's contact in the police department, packaged as a concerned citizen report. The DA, a career prosecutor named Lisa Park, recognized the implications immediately and expanded the investigation. Phase 2 rolled out next. Malcolm, using an LLC created by Dave to obscure his involvement, purchased Morris's $35,000 debt from the loan shark for $40,000 cash. The loan shark was happy to unload a potentially troublesome debt. Morris had a violent reputation, and collection could get messy. Malcolm, now the creditor, sent Morris a formal letter demanding full payment within 30 days or asset seizure. Walter's casino debt was easier. The casino was happy to sell the $22,000 marker to Malcolm's LLC for $15,000, considering Walter had no real assets to collect against. Malcolm offered Walter the same terms, 30 days to pay in full. Neither man could possibly pay. Both would default. Both would lose everything. Phase 3 launched when Ernest, using his media contact from years of consulting on veteran-related stories, leaked the insurance policy and portions of the text messages to a local investigative journalist. The journalist, smelling a major story, ran with it. Local mother accused of plotting son's death for insurance payout hit the evening news 3 days later. Vicky's face, pulled from her nursing license photo, appeared on every major channel. The story had everything: military family, betrayal, murder plot, dramatic rescue by veteran friends. It went viral locally, then regionally. Vicky's attorney called Dave in a panic, trying to negotiate a gag order. Dave refused. Public information, counselor. Can't unring that bell. The nursing board contacted Vicky within 24 hours, opening an immediate ethics investigation. Even without criminal conviction, the mere accusations and insurance policy evidence were enough to suspend her license pending review. Phase 4 was simpler, but equally devastating. Kenneth forwarded Trudy Cantrell's insurance application history to a fraud investigator at the state level, along with fire department reports from her previous claims and financial records showing she'd upgraded policies right before both fires. The investigator opened a case. Search warrants were executed on Trudy's home and financial records. What they found was damning: receipts for accelerants, evidence of financial troubles before each fire, communications with her sons about making the house pay for itself. Trudy was arrested and charged with 2 counts of insurance fraud and 1 count of arson. Her house was seized as proceeds of crime, pending trial. All of this happened within 2 weeks of Malcolm's return from deployment. The Cantrell family imploded spectacularly and publicly. Morris's trial came first. He'd rejected a plea deal, 10 years with chance of parole in 5, and demanded to face his accusers in court. Bad decision. Lucas testified again, this time with the benefit of weeks of therapy to help him process and articulate what had happened. The boy was poised, detailed, heartbreaking. Harold and his team testified about the scene they'd found, the violence they'd stopped. The medical examiner presented Lucas's injuries in graphic detail, and then the prosecution played the text messages. Morris's face, when the messages appeared on the courtroom screen, was a mixture of rage and disbelief. He'd assumed they were secured, private. Now, they were public record, his intention to kill a child spelled out in his own words. The jury deliberated 90 minutes. Guilty on all counts: conspiracy to commit murder, assault on a minor, child endangerment. With his prior convictions, sentencing guidelines meant 15 to 20 years minimum. Walter and Edgar took plea deals after that, 12 years and 10 years respectively, with no chance of parole for at least half the sentence. Vicky's trial was scheduled for 2 months later. She'd maintained her innocence, claimed she'd been manipulated by her brothers, that she never intended for Lucas to be seriously hurt. Her attorney tried to paint her as a victim of her family's violence, a woman trapped in a toxic dynamic. The insurance policy made that story impossible to sell. So did the text messages where she'd explicitly discussed the payout amounts and her plans for starting fresh after Malcolm died. But Malcolm had one more card to play before the trial. He'd been visiting Lucas regularly, helping his son adjust to the new reality. Sole custody with his father, therapy sessions, slowly rebuilding trust and security. Lucas was resilient, but the betrayal by his mother had cut deep. One evening, Lucas asked the question Malcolm had been dreading. "Do you think Mom ever really loved us?" Malcolm sat with the question, chose his words carefully. "I think she loved the idea of us, the life we could give her. But real love means protection, sacrifice, putting your family first. She didn't do that. She chose herself, chose money, chose wrong. That's on her, not you. I don't want to see her again. You don't have to. Court's not going to force you. When you're older, if you change your mind, that's your choice. But right now, my job is keeping you safe. And that means keeping her away." Lucas nodded, seemed to accept this. "Then, Dad, are you doing something to them? To Mom and her family?" Malcolm met his son's eyes, so much older now than they should be at 12. "Would that bother you?" "No. I want them to hurt like they hurt me. I know that's not nice to say, but it's true. It's honest. And yes, I'm making sure they face consequences. Real consequences, not just what the courts give them. Is that okay with you?" "Yeah, it is." 2 days before Vicky's trial, Kenneth delivered the final piece of intelligence. Trudy Cantrell had been offering her daughter advice from jail, recorded on monitored calls because Trudy wasn't smart enough to use a lawyer as intermediary. In those calls, Trudy coached Vicky on how to play sympathy, suggested she accuse Malcolm of abuse, recommended she claim postpartum depression had affected her judgment for years. All recorded, all admissible, all showing consciousness of guilt and willingness to lie under oath. Dave submitted the recordings to the prosecution. Vicky's attorney, faced with insurmountable evidence and a client who kept making things worse, negotiated a final plea. 20 years with possibility of parole after 12. Vicky would be in her 50s when she got out, her nursing license permanently revoked, her son grown and likely wanting nothing to do with her. She took the deal. The day of sentencing, Malcolm attended. So did Lucas, at his own insistence. They sat in the gallery while Vicky stood before Judge Horn, the same judge who'd granted Malcolm custody. Judge Horn didn't mince words. "Mrs. Preston, you violated the most sacred trust a parent holds, to protect and nurture your child. Instead, you conspired to end his life for financial gain. You watched your brothers abuse him. You encouraged their violence. You are, in the eyes of this court and by your own admission, guilty of the most profound betrayal. This sentence reflects the severity of your crimes and the permanent damage you've caused to your child and family. 20 years. Vicky would serve at least 12. She looked at Lucas once before the bailiffs took her away. Whatever she saw on his face made her look away quickly, eyes down. Lucas's expression was neutral, giving her nothing. Not forgiveness, not hatred, just emptiness where love should have been. Outside the courthouse, Harold and the team were waiting. They'd attended every hearing, every trial, a silent wall of support for Malcolm and Lucas. "It's done," Harold said. "Morris is going away for 2 decades. Walter and Edgar for 10 plus. Vicky for 12 minimum. Trudy's trial is next month, but she's looking at 10 years for the insurance fraud. The whole family's destroyed." "Good," Lucas said quietly. Everyone looked at him. "They deserve it. All of it." Malcolm put a hand on his son's shoulder. "Let's go home." Except home wasn't the house Malcolm and Vicky had shared. That was tainted now, filled with memories of betrayal. Malcolm sold it, used the proceeds to buy a smaller place closer to Harold's ranch, near the ocean. Fresh start for both of them. The civil suits settled out of court. Vicky and her brothers had no assets, but their future prison earnings would be garnished for years. It was symbolic more than financial. The money would go into a trust for Lucas's college and therapy. Malcolm took an early retirement from the Marines. 20 years was enough for full pension, and he'd earned it. Lucas needed him home, needed stability and presence. The deployment that had kept Malcolm from protecting his son would be the last one. Harold offered Malcolm a job with a security consulting firm, work that used Malcolm's skills but kept him stateside, flexible hours, good pay. Malcolm accepted. He wanted to rebuild the relationship with Lucas that Vicky had damaged, be the father his son deserved. 6 months after the trials ended, Malcolm and Lucas stood on the beach near their new house, watching the sunset. Lucas had started to smile more, laugh occasionally, seem like a kid again instead of a traumatized survivor. "Dad," Lucas said, "thank you." "For what?" "For coming when I called. For believing me. For making sure they paid." Lucas looked up at him. "I know you did more than just let the courts handle it. Uncle Harold told me. I'm glad you did." Malcolm considered denying it, maintaining plausible deniability. But his son deserved honesty. Sometimes the legal system isn't enough. Sometimes justice needs help. I made sure they faced real consequences, financial, social, personal. They'll carry the weight of what they did for the rest of their lives, behind bars and after. That felt fair to me. It feels fair to me too. Mom used to say you were too rigid, too military, too black and white. But you're not. You're just fair. You make sure things balance out right. They stood in comfortable silence, waves washing up on the sand, the salt air clean and cool. Malcolm thought about the past 20 years, the deployments, the combat, the sacrifices. None of it had prepared him for almost losing his son, for discovering his wife's true nature. But it had prepared him for what came after, for executing a plan with precision, for coordinating with a team, for achieving objectives despite impossible odds. Those skills had dismantled the Cantrell family, ensured they'd never hurt anyone again. Was it revenge? Maybe. Was it justice? Absolutely. Lucas ran ahead toward the water, still 12, but growing into someone stronger, more resilient. Malcolm watched him, felt the weight of responsibility and love that came with fatherhood. The kind of love Vicky had never understood. His phone buzzed. Text from Harold. Trudy's trial ended. Guilty on all counts. 10 years, no parole for 5. It's finished. Malcolm texted back. Good. It was finished. The Cantrell family was broken, scattered, imprisoned. Vicky would spend over a decade behind bars, her career and reputation destroyed. Her brothers would emerge from prison as old men with nothing. Trudy would lose everything to legal fees and restitution. And Malcolm had his son, safe and healing, building a new life together. He walked down to join Lucas at the water's edge, the Pacific stretching endless before them. The future was uncertain. It always was. But they'd face it together, stronger for having survived the worst kind of betrayal and come through the other side. Justice, Malcolm thought, wasn't always what the courts delivered. Sometimes it required more. Sometimes it required men willing to operate in the gray spaces to ensure the scales truly balanced. His team, Harold, Kenneth, Clark, Ernest, Fred, had helped him achieve that balance. Brothers in arms, brothers in purpose. Lucas splashed water at him, grinning. Malcolm splashed back, and for a moment, they were just father and son playing in the ocean, the darkness of recent months fading into memory. The Cantrells would remember their crimes from prison cells. Malcolm and Lucas would remember by building something better, a life defined not by what was taken, but by what they protected and preserved. That felt like victory. That felt like justice.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.